So we've shown you some thoughts around defining social CRM. We've shown you thoughts around developing a social business. And we've shown you some thoughts around tips and ideas for some of the challenges. I'd like to finish with some thinking around some of the best practice examples on executions and tactics that we've seen where brands are making a positive step towards embracing social CRM. I'm going to talk about recruiting, that is recruiting and identifying high-value consumers from within your social activity. I'm going to talk about identifying influencers and the role and the critical value that influencers can play in a brand plan. Embracing community, how you can enable your social activity through your brand websites and your email marketing, and just look at how you need to best communicate and identify that social CRM is an absolute commitment once you've started. So let's start off with recruitment. A lot of what we do is working with brands, is looking at Facebook fans and developing a Facebook page. And I think one of the key rules within Facebook marketing is that it's not about quantity. And it very much should be focused more today around quality and more around how many influential fans you have. How many of that fan base are that 20% that drive the real value in your business? And we're starting to now see brands actually actively try to recruit in their social activities and in their fan pages. So here you have an example of Pampers, who are talking in a wall post about sharing their village. Share the rewards. Start your friends on their journey to the rewards of Pampers Village. So they're actively trying to get consumers to click through on these posts to sign up to the Pampers Village program. And Bailey's at Diageo have a specific tab on their Facebook page for the Bailey's Lounge, which is their relationship marketing program. And consumers can go through to that tab, sign up to the program. And brands like KFC, who are trialing this, are now seeing between 3 and 5% of their total database recruitment coming from their Facebook pages. So very much thinking about let's identify our high-value consumers in our fan pages and get them on our databases. We're also doing some work now with Coca-Cola, and Coke are now testing using Facebook advertising, Facebook ads, to recruit consumers onto the database, onto the Coke Zone program. So again, advertising as well as wall posts can be used to try to drive consumers through into your owned database. Influence is key. If we look at the old days of segmentation, it was often focused on a simple matrix where we looked at brand love or brand affinity on one axis and consumption on the other. And we'd focus in that top right corner. We'd focus on our high-value consumers being high brand affinity and high consumption. But today, the role of influence and influencers, we can actually find that these high-value consumers might be down the bottom. They might be only somewhat into the brand and not consuming a huge amount, but actually be massively influential in terms of their social sphere. So it's very much important to start to look at how we can identify influencers. And there's lots, as I said earlier, lots of companies like Rapleaf and Flowtown who can actually take a database of email addresses, match that against publicly available information, and then identify an influence score on those consumers. And you then apply that back to your database at the individual level. And it can really open up a new view on how valuable a consumer is. There are, of course, privacy issues around what is publicly available, and it has to be a very carefully trod course, but it's one that can be very successful today. Here's an example from Kraft. And what Kraft did was identify in their Comida y Familia program, they were targeting Hispanics in North America. And they identified 1,000 influential mums and asked them to put on parties, house parties. They supplied them with food, party guides, numerous assets to put on a great party. And they found out from that activity that of all the people that came to the parties and then recommended the parties and Kraft foods and Kraft brands, they actually reached over 150,000 consumers from those 1,000 influencers. So a very good way to think about amplifying your reach from what's often seen as a niche or a small-scale discipline. Embracing community is another key area. It's a very good idea for brands to think about developing an owned community of brand adorers and influencers. Johnny Walker have taken this approach recently and set up the Altitude Lounge community. It's a community of frequent flyers, of business travellers, who they want to try and elicit campaign ideas from and product innovation ideas from. And they've actually recruited towards this Altitude Lounge through Facebook, trying to get consumers, fans, to actually become members of the Altitude Lounge. And when you look at the actual community that they're now building, you now see consumers are saying, you know what, it's a privilege being asked for my opinion. It's great to know that someone does listen and act. So the idea of an owned community is something that we're seeing becoming quite successful. And Gartner have suggested that over half of Fortune 1000 will have some form of community for CRM purposes by the end of last year. Fourth area is around enabling, around optimizing your owned assets, such as your websites. And what we're now seeing is brands getting active in using Facebook Connect to actually recruit consumers. So here we have Coke, who actually still offer the traditional data capture form, but they also offer the chance for consumers to connect via Facebook. Very simple, click, and then you're able to allow Coke Zone, in this case, the GBRM program, to access your information and to communicate with you. Very much opt-in, but using a simple approach of using a social ID to quickly get onto a database. Fifth one is around communication. I said earlier that we're all fairly well versed in the idea of above-the-line driven peak and trough campaigns. CRM 1.0 took us into the world where actually we'd be communicating far more regularly with our consumers, weekly, monthly, often through email marketing. And what CRM 2.0 or social can do is offer us that approach to being always on. We cushion the effect of the troughs by being regularly in contact with our consumers, especially our higher value consumers. So think about social CRM as a way to really move away from that peak and trough effect. We'll still be doing above-the-line advertising, of course, as part of a 360 campaign, but social is about cushioning that trough and being always on. We felt it was critical to say, especially in a room like this, that email is not dead. We have often heard this in speaking with brands, that email marketing is finished, email marketing is over, and that's absolutely not the case. This study from Exact Target looked at identifying 12 different personas or consumer types, and they found that 9 out of the 12, apart from the youth personas, were actually using email as much or more than they were using Facebook and Twitter. So very much think about email as still having a role. However, email marketing, as with brand websites, have to evolve. Email marketing should also be socially optimized. And we always need to think about how we're encouraging consumers to share the content within their email out on their wall or out on their social sites. So here you see an example again from Coke, where the email marketing is actively encouraging me to share the McDonald's tie-up in my Facebook page. I do that, and then my 50, 100 friends see me recommending Coke and McDonald's promotion. And we all know that consumers trust their friends more than they do brands. So a great way to amplify your email marketing. And you see here from eConsultancy, it's woefully inadequate now just to rely on CRM 1.0 email marketing. We must optimize. Also key to think about social marketing being social. This is about two-way dialogue and conversation. And it's absolutely no good for a brand to think about Facebook or any other social site as a push channel or a push mechanic for our brand marketing. It has to be very much about participating in dialogue. There's a great example here from Unilever and their Axe brand. They have here a lady called Jenny with Axe who posts regular comments into the Axe fan page. But Jenny with Axe is also active in replying, in feeding back and engaging with the fans on that page. So it absolutely is a fact that this is a commitment. Once we get into social, this is an absolute commitment. We have to resource up, internally or externally, to deliver engagement always on. So I'm going to finish there with some examples and hand over to Julian just to close with a few key takeaways and some golden principles for you all to think about.